Everywhere I go, like Evanthia is there. Is that like a thing?
Evanthia is my second name.
But everywhere I go, it's like Lauren Evanthia. Like, it's almost like, do you prefer that or you just, hey, I'm Lauren?
I like both, actually. But
Okay.
Lauren, I'm more commonly known as Lauren, yes.
Lauren Bernardo.
Bernardo.
Nice to meet you, Lauren. And I'm honored to have invited you here. I think I invited you. Or I think your people were shoving you down my throat.
I think they were absolutely badgering you.
Jeez.
I don't know if I should apologize or not, but we're here now.
No, I was quite impressed. You have believers. We spoke about my mini cult.
Yes.
It looks like your mini cult is much stronger than mine. And it's got a very catchy name, which sounds like we're meditating. And that's probably going to be a running joke for you guys for a while.
It is. You won't believe what people say.
Oh, you joined that Lauren's cult. Lauren, I'm honored to have you here. I think there was a question you had for me before we start officially. Political parties and something else.
I just wanted to know, Pen, how much political discussion you've had on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, my viewers are going to be offended. How? She doesn't watch the Penuel show. I never take for granted anyone who watches our stuff. And I never assume that people watch our stuff because there's such a vast array of things out there. We're competing with Netflix, SABC, DSTV, Amazon Prime, social media just generally. And then if you're starting like a podcast, you're competing with everyone and their aunt and their cat's podcast as well. And everyone has got their own preference of what they watch. We're not a political platform. I think there's a gentleman called Dr. Sizwe Mpofu Walsh who I've had here. He runs SMWX. They're very politics heavy. I love Zetu Kola and Dan Korda. They do a lot of TikTok videos, current affairs, but they touch on a lot of politics as well. In the last, maybe it's going for a year now, we've done a bit of a zoom into politics because of the elections coming. I've had the leader of the ATM, Vuyo Zungula, here. I've had the leader of the Patriotic Alliance, Gaten McKenzie, here. I've had the leader of Action SA, Herman Mashaba, here. I've had... who else have we had? I've had the leader of the UDM, Bantu Olomisa, General Bantu Olomisa, here. I've had one of the young leaders of the IFP, Mkhuleko Hlengwa, here. I've had the DA premier candidate, Solim Simanga, here as well. I don't know if I'm missing anyone. I'm not sure.
That's actually a significant amount.
It's quite a bit. And already I'm tired because politics actually is very draining in this country, which is half why I'm actually excited to be sitting with you, because your party is almost like anti-establishment.
100%. We actually describe ourselves as anti-establishment in our founding document.
Yeah, please, let's start off officially. Who are you, Lauren? Where are you from? And what is OHM about?
I am Lauren Evanthia Bernardo.
Nice to meet you, Lauren. Welcome to the Penuel Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I live in Cape Town, so I'm here in Gauteng for a few things. We did the Code of Conduct signing in Gauteng. We're doing Dubai elections today, which I'm very excited about. And I started the Organic Humanity Movement, which is a registered political party.
Oh, you can speak slower. Sorry.
There's
no rush.
I've been so used to speaking fast because of time limits.
Sure.
I started the Organic Humanity Movement, and that was in 2018. We registered with the IEC as an official party. So I must just disclose here in the beginning, I was in politics since 2014 with the official opposition of the country. That was my...
You don't want to mention their name? Are they the boogeyman?
It's more like I don't want to give them free advertising.
I hear you. So the official opposition, you were part of government with them?
No. Well, I first started off just as a voter, then as a volunteer. Then I worked on the campaign team in Cape Town. So I'm from Cape Town. I live in Cape Town. And then I just got so sick of how politics works. It gets in the way. I'd also spend, and I'd often speak to people of other parties too, so I know I wasn't alone in this feeling.
Sure.
I'd spend weekends, evenings, public holidays furthering the cause of this organization and literally not see people's lives improve. And it got to a point, I remember one specific time in Khayelitsha when we were walking back from a flyer drop-off, just seeing the flyers in the road and thinking, what parties are doing countrywide are not actually improving tangibly the lives of citizens.
Yeah.
Politics is built to get in the way of governance.
I hear you.
And that's why I wanted to just get away from it. When I left the DA, I'll say it, I couldn't fathom joining any other party. Firstly, the ideologies were all wrong, and the internal politics structure is just toxic.
Sure.
It works the way mafia works, in a sense. I mean,
were you angry when you founded OHM?
No.
You were just like, no,
I was joyfully inspired. So while I was with this party, I was exasperated. I was frustrated. I haven't got a political background. I actually studied sound engineering.
Oh, wow.
In Port Elizabeth.
You'll help us with our sound. Thank you so much. NMU?
No. It's called Radioactive Production Publishing. I'm not sure if they even still stand. We actually interned at the SAPC studios.
Dope.
It was amazing. It was such a fun time. It was a year of my life. And I worked in the industry, and I must say politics and the entertainment industry are not so different. They are very similar.
The tech guys in America call politicians bad actors. I think that's the term they use. Yes. So when you say it's entertainment and politics is not different, it's a lot of performance, populism, getting the crowds hyped.
It is, because those crowds are extras. They're often paid or given incentives to be there. They're not necessarily diehard supporters or anything. So all of politics is a show, and the people are suffering.
You went to Port Elizabeth, Gqeberha, because you were trying to get away from home as a young person?
No, that's where I live. That's where I was born, sorry.
Oh, you're from Port Elizabeth originally? I
moved to Cape Town in 2008.
Oh, okay. Did you study in P?
Yes, sound engineering. At this place called...
Besides tertiary, like your whole life there?
Oh, no. Well, my whole life was there. I went to school there.
Sure.
Grew up there.
Did you go to a popular school in high school?
I guess Port Elizabeth is very small, so I think all the schools are somewhat popular.
I don't know if all, but I know a couple of names. If you want to give your school a shout out? Let's
do it. I went to St. Dominic's Priory High School.
Oh, snap.
What do you mean snap? Did you also go to a Catholic school?
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. St. Dominic's Priory.
Yes.
In Port Elizabeth.
Yes.
I studied at Rhodes University in Grahamstown.
Amazing.
I'm originally from Newcastle in KZN.
Oh, wow.
So when I got to Grahamstown, I met a lot of kids from all over the Eastern Cape. So I made friends from Grey High School, Collegiate, Pearson, Westering, Alexandra. Mm-hmm. Is that a school?
Alex, yes.
Where I come from, there is a St. Dominic's as well, where my firstborn son and his sister, their mom went to a St. Dominic's. So that's pretty dope.
That's amazing.
Shout out to St. Dom's for you.
Shout out.
Before you came here, I was a bit nervous about you and I sitting, because as we get closer to the elections, number one, we don't have slots here. So there's probably going to be certain episodes that won't make it before the elections. But number two, I was like, I don't mind. Oh, we had Mpho Takada of Arise SA here as well. They competing provincially, but there was an administrative error and they were taken off the national. We had Tutuzane Zuma, who had all Game Changers AGC here as well. They also were taken off. I was worried about, look, I don't mind speaking to like the smaller parties, the new parties, upcoming parties, like, but what impact are they making? Are they just coming to make noise, coming to dilute votes, etc., etc.? And I went and I read your manifesto, and I was like, I've actually been looking for, specifically from a provincial level, a party to vote for. I don't know if you guys are running provincially.
We are not doing anything provincially.
That makes me sad. But your ideologies, man, mean everything to me. And I think it's one of the reasons why your supporters have been trolling. I don't know if trolling is the right word, but they've been blasting a lot of my comments everywhere I speak, because some of the things I speak about are things that you speak about. So if you don't mind, the Organic Humanity Movement, you founded end of 2017, beginning of 2018, you registered. What is the thinking? Because you're not happy with politics. You're not happy with the political system. You're like, these guys are run like mafias. There's a lot of internal rubbish. They're not really serving the people. And as you said, politics seems to get in the way of real governance and service delivery. So what are you thinking, and what is it that now informs what I hope you're going to present now as your manifesto?
So if I have to go back to those days in 2017, and I can absolutely say the date, it was the 17th of September 2017, where this idea was birthed. And it was particularly I woke up early. I was having a particularly tough time because I went from my sound engineering background in the music industry, which was fun and enjoyable, to being involved in politics first as a volunteer, then employed, and falling in love with politics and wanting to make active change for the future. So by the time I voted for the very first time in 2014, this is going a bit more back now, my fourth and last born was a year old.
Sure. Congrats, by the way. We love mommies.
Thanks.
4 kids. You're doing
4
well.
kids.
1 more, then you're sorted.
I think I'm done, hey.
We'll see. I'll try and convince Dad to push for 1 more for the road.
Okay, you can have that discussion with him. So, in St. Dominic's, I was the naughty kid. I was the outcast. I was the troubled child. And I had this motto. And I do not abide by this motto now. But I had this motto, religion like the government should be abolished. So I was very much anti-government.
Hectic. And you want to say this here on a platform?
And then
religion like politics should be abolished.
Yes, that was my motto back then. So it was quite ironic that by the time I had my kids, I changed so much that I felt a need to get involved in politics. Because at the time, if you remember correctly, when I voted for the first time, 2014, there was a lot of like xenophobic attacks, and there was a lot of things going wrong. Zuma was the president. There was this huge campaign against him as the president, and all the corruption charges. So there was a lot of political, I suppose, people had this sense of instability in the country. And my baby was a baby. And I thought, my children have to grow up here. I can't imagine leaving the country. So we need to make this country work. So I got involved in politics. Got sick of politics, not politics itself, but how it works, the internal culture. And then I literally 17th of September, I woke up very early with the birds, and I was tossing and turning, I literally went through all the parties in my head that I know of, that are represented, and thinking I cannot align myself with any of the ideologies. And so I just thought, let me start. These were this is my exact thought that I had. Let me start my own political party. And I just felt so much joy from that thought. I woke my husband up, knocking on his shoulder. Hey, wake up.
I'm starting a political party. No, get a real job.
Pretty much.
Sure.
And you know what? What surprised me was that he was not surprised. He said, I was waiting for this.
Sure.
I could see this happening. Because I would obviously come home from work and be like, this happened, and I don't like this, and I don't like that. So he saw it coming.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have a name. I didn't have people. Usually people will start a party, they break away from an existing organization. It's
normally easier. Even a church, a person starts a new church because they were sub-preaching somewhere else, yeah.
So I didn't know how to go forward, but I knew this was it. I felt I was just fueled with so much passion and joy and energy that I knew I was on the right track. And so I just started gathering information, how to write a constitution. Let me see what the IEC requires of me, and all of those things. And so I had to create a folder on my computer. I had to name this folder. And I thought, what are we going to call ourselves? And I said OHM. OHM because it's the electrical resistance.
Dope. So you guys are going to bring us the power.
Literally and figuratively. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But OHM, a resistance against control is essentially our innermost philosophy in the
So before you came up with the words, you came up with the acronym.
Yes.
You're like, it will be OHM because it represents something.
Yes, it represents the resistance against control, all kinds of control, government control, corporate control, any control.
Sure. And then you gave it the words.
That filled in later. So I was working in the city of Cape Town.
Sound like a hippie.
It does. So we've received a lot of criticism about this from people who, I suppose, don't spend some time to think about it or ask questions. So they'll be like, are you a vegan party? No, we're not a vegan. I eat meat, okay? I don't know if you're a vegan. I'm not vegan.
No, unfortunately, I'm sorry to the vegans. We're not vegan.
We're not, yeah.
But we love the animals.
Of course.
Even when we eat. Sorry.
So I was working in the city of Cape Town. So I would drive up to 3 hours a day there and back.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, we live in a box, we drive in a box, and we work in a box. I was lucky in my work environment that I had an office all to myself. I always felt very grateful for that. But it was an air-conditioned room, never got any sunshine, had a tiny little window. And I just thought most privileged people will complain that their food's not organic and their food's not free range, yet we ourselves are not living the lifestyles we are demanding of the food we're eating. There's a little bit of a contradiction there.
Correct.
And so organic, that comes from the fact that I do believe as human beings, we need to honor ourselves as natural, mortal beings.
Yeah.
And if you look at the fourth industrial revolution, what is the fourth industrial revolution trying to do? Create all this technology to make life completely different, but also there's this aspect of creating immortality through downloading consciousness into an entity. And we want to move away from anything that the fourth industrial revolution imposes on us here in South Africa that causes us to live unnatural lifestyles. Think about mental health as well from that perspective. People are not coping in the financial system that we have.
Sure.
There's no exit out of the financial system that doesn't end in tragedy. And this is why we say organic humanity, because there is no humanity in society or government.
Yeah.
And we're a movement of people.
Do you watch movies?
I do.
I rewatched one of my favorite movies called Ex Machina with Alicia Vikander.
I'm not sure if I've seen that one, but I do like a sci-fi.
Please do. Alicia Vikander, brilliant actress. But it's the concept of this guy who manufactures an artificial intelligence robot, which is meant to mimic some type of human consciousness. Yes. Anyone who hasn't seen it must go see it. It's pretty brilliant. But when you spoke about the fact that we're trying to download consciousness so we can live forever, these are some of the concepts that I've been fascinated by probably since The Matrix came out all those years ago.
Back in the day.
And now you speak about the fact that there is no exit to this financial system that doesn't end in tragedy. I've had a guest here, Warwick Stock, DJ Waras, and I've spoken about this idea of, I call them human preservation farms. Very, very inappropriate concept and idea, but it comes from a good place. You're speaking about organic foods. When I was coming up with this concept, the idea was we will save the rhino and preserve our natural habitat, but we don't do the same with human beings. And imagine if we had these untainted spaces where people could live as organically as possible. And you minimize technology and you minimize all these processed things. And you say, for anyone who's not coping in the capitalist world, at any given time, you can unplug and go there. Yes, you have to fetch your own water. Yes, you have to make your own fires. Yes, but it's so that you are healthy and you're out in nature. And if ever you feel you want to get back into money, you can come back. But if you go there, you don't go there with your cell phone and it's not created for that. Human preservation farms as a potential solution to greedy capitalists, because one of their concerns for the future is we are creating robots to replace human beings so that they can work 24 hours a day, exploited, not even paid, and there won't be human rights violations and labor laws. We'll be good. It's going to be the next step after automation. But now, what are we going to do with the rest of these humans? Because they're here now. And my thing was, why not just set them free? Because the issue that we have with the money system, even in South Africa with social welfare, our government and political parties love the idea of social grants because you're giving money to people who are doing nothing so they can buy from the businesses that fund you.
100%.
You almost need these people, even if they have no skills. And as long as they are buying from, and you're like, can we not take some of these people? Because some of them end up in crime. You won't be able to give them all money. It's unsustainable.
It is.
Let them go. Be like, okay, we can't help these guys for grants, let's give them to Penn. He's going to send them to the human preservation farms where the danger, of course, is if that place becomes a really nice place where even like the guys with money are like, I think I want to quit. I'm rich, but the people, they look so happy. The kids were singing. Everyone was cooking their own food. So I just wanted to raise those two references.
Free the humans is basically what you're saying.
Free the humans. I'm thinking of a John Lennon line. It's not coming. Rage Against the Machine. What does OHM stand for in ordinary speak for people that want to know? So we've heard the organic. It sounds nice. Lauren was upset. That's cute. But Lauren, what are you offering us? Because as a political party, you obviously want us to vote for you. But what exactly are we voting for?
So I love that you framed the question that way, because I do have big ideals for humanity progressing in a humane and natural way. But what does that mean tangibly? Because people want to eat today. People want to stop suffering now.
Yeah.
We have identified all the systems that exist that govern our society as oppressive systems.
All of them.
All of them. The government, the political system, the healthcare system, the financial system, the economic, the legal system, they all oppress us. They're designed to do so.
Thank you for saying legal. I normally, when people are like the justice, I'm like, it's not just. Please call it legal.
Yeah, the legal system. There's no justice in the legal system.
Yeah.
It's so inaccessible, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down. So we want to break down those barriers of oppression and replace them with systems of liberation. Like you say, free the people. We want to liberate every human being.
Yeah.
Emancipate people from the oppression we've been under forever.
Yeah.
So the first step is to change the political system first. That will pave the way for changing the other systems later. And what I identified, if you read the Constitution of South Africa, firstly, I realized how few people have actually taken the time to read the Constitution of South Africa and then to fully understand what it means, and then also to read between the lines and understand what's not written. And what I identified is in the Constitution, so you'll see that the Electoral Act has been changed. That's not good enough. In the Constitution, it declares that we are a multi-party system. And we believe one of the biggest steps this country needs to take that will result in tangible, better results down the line is getting rid of the multi-party system, replacing it with a system where you directly elect your leaders, including the direct election of the president of the country, the future president.
You want to scrap all political parties?
Including ourselves.
You want to get into power so that you can get out of power?
100%. Who else is going to do it? You have to use the system against itself. Any other way would be probably resulting in violence or bloodshed. So this is a way to get legitimate international recognition. If you do it through the electoral system as a party.
Yeah.
So I was very confused in the beginning. I thought, do I just stay a non-political organization? And I could have. I decided not to. And there's pros and cons to going either way.
Sure.
And I thought, when you put forward this solution, get buy-in from the public, do it through the electoral system, all of a sudden now the international community has to recognize this regime change as legitimate.
What has informed, I don't know if I'd call it curiosity. So you mentioned that you worked under the official opposition. It's a very short period, you voted 2014, very short period.
So it was not even a full year working for the party, and then not even a full year working for government administration.
So for me, it wouldn't be enough to have taught you so much about how the systems work. So
I think it was enough, eh?
There must be some level of curiosity, or maybe in your upbringing, that has informed even this resistance. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. That's Bob Marley.
I love that.
There must be something that's informed your upbringing, besides being at the Catholic school and be like, no, we must fight and religion must go. What do you think it is? Maybe your parents? Is it books you've read?
A mixture. I've asked this question of myself a lot. I think I have an inner rebel in me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just part of my personality. The music. I always ask myself, is the music I used to listen to and still listen to, is that what informed my political leanings?
Sure.
Or is it my political leanings that attracts me to the music I listen to? I'm not sure. It's like a chicken and egg question.
Would you like to mention the music?
Yeah, well... when I was very young,
sure.
I can. When I was very young, when I was in high school, I listened to Black Sabbath and I listened to Guns N' Roses and Metallica and a lot of other metal.
Jeez, that's heavy metal.
I used to wear black often. Like I would feel naked if I wasn't dressed.
Were you a goth?
In my younger years, I did explore black nail polish and black clothing and all those alternative things way before it was cool.
So you weren't a PK, a pastor's kid, but you went to a Catholic school. And I find a lot of kids, pastors' kids, a lot of kids at very strict religious schools for some reason are very rebellious.
If I think of my peers at school, I can't say the same for them.
Okay.
They've gone on and led very normal lives.
Sure.
And that's awesome. I guess maybe it is just my upbringing, single mom and an unconventional mom.
Sure.
Yeah.
Your mom is happy with your direction now? Does she support you?
We don't speak.
Is that something you'd like to talk about or not at all?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry about that,
no,
by the way.
It's okay.
I hope it gets sorted. I have an issue. I just wasn't sure whether to raise it now or raise it later. No, let me raise it later. So you'd like people to vote for you so you can come in, change the constitution, remove political parties. I had the pleasure of sitting with, I don't know if it's One South Africa, Dr. Michael Louis. He's been one of the people that has championed for independence to get into parliament. I think Musi Maimane did some work with them as well. We're not happy with where it is currently. Cyril Ramaphosa and the rest of government have signed it in, as messy as it is, because it still favors them in a large way. For most people that do not know, I think currently independents can only occupy 200 of the 400 seats. So there's a limitation outside of the many other hurdles they need to jump. But Dr. Michael Louis is still going to the Constitutional Court because fundamentally he wants, I think what you want, to say we need independence to have more of a voice.
I met him a long time ago, just in brief. I mean, I don't even think he'll remember me. It was in the early days of me starting Home. And his strategy, I criticize because he's chosen the legal system and needs to change. I believe that now what he's done, he's said these changes need to take place. And he's left the decision actually in the hands of those currently in power.
Correct.
Instead of infiltrating the political system from within and then changing it like that. So I think strategy is extremely important.
Yeah.
And how one approaches it to get an end goal is extremely important. So we don't even expect to get a majority rule at any point. Yeah. We believe that once we have representation in National Assembly, whether it's 1 seat or whether it's 50 seats, it doesn't matter. We're actually going to start lobbying, not other parties, individuals.
In those parties.
To
kind of floor cross and
not even
jump
floor
ship.
crush. No, not even. Not at all. To say these are the changes we want to make to the Constitution. Yeah. This is literally in the best interest of the people.
Yeah.
If you care about South Africa, and even if you care about your seat, and if you want to grow your own following, it's in your interest to bring these changes about.
Grow your own following. It's like infiltrating the SABC and teaching everyone to create their own podcast.
But it's about independence, and that's the thing. I mean, our identities, our personalities, and our successes are based primarily on how the financial system operates. Take that away, and who are we really?
Sure.
And it's the same with the political system. I think, and this has been a hard journey and a learning curve for me, because I've realized not very many people actually want freedom, even if they say they do. When it comes down to it, and when they actually think about what freedom means, I don't believe they actually want to do what it takes to have it.
Are you preparing yourself for that pain? Because some of us have gone through it. Because I was going to say later that, some of your ideas and some of your vision is very idealistic. And I don't know if you're ready for some of the pain. Part of it being the realization that there are some people that will literally fight you to stay within those boxes you spoke about.
I think I'm experiencing it as we go along. Yeah. But I have hope that there is enough. I believe that once our message has reached all South Africans, once that has happened, I believe there's enough people that will value freedom so much that they will do what it takes to make South Africa a sovereign nation where people can live free.
So Dr. Michael Louis argues that the current way that we vote is unconstitutional. Of which I asked him this question, and he didn't give me a straight answer, and it wasn't for him to answer. It was like, if you're going to say the way we vote, where you have to vote for a political party for someone to get a seat, is unconstitutional, that could arguably mean all our elections before have been null and void to some degree.
I'd agree with that.
Before 94, most South Africans don't know, we did have constituency-based voting, which to the average South African, they don't even know there is constituency. What's that now? Where essentially, and I'd like you to also zero in on this, the idea of having representatives geographically representing you in parliament is one of the things that you guys believe in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can understand why. I actually perfectly understand why we have the system we do. When you went from apartheid to where we are now, because society wasn't integrated. I see why it was necessary to implement this multi-party system. And I feel like it's now time to move on.
So you're saying it was almost valid for that time?
Almost valid, because you're coming from apartheid, where areas were segregated and all the rest. You're coming from that time to immediately the transition happens and now people need to vote and people need to get informed. So I can understand. But I think the Constitution and everything was always put in place with the idea that it was going to evolve as our democracy evolves. But unfortunately, what has happened is that the politicians in the system have decided to secure their positions, to hold on to power, so that people are continuously just feeding the state machine at the end of the day. So constituency-based, our constituency, so we actually, if we can talk about government structure a little bit.
Please go for it.
Because what's different is that not only do we want to change the electoral system, we want to change how government works, the government structure. So what we want to do is get rid of provincial government. Our provincial borders can be there for logistic purposes, but provincial legislature won't be there because I feel like it's redundant. I feel like it's a huge drain on taxpayers' money. I think it's unnecessary. So what we're going to have is a very strong national government that will take care of three main areas. It'll take care of the defense of the borders of the country from international threats. Which is currently non-existent. Yeah. In so many ways as well. It's not just about a huge topic right now is foreigners, if you can call them that, coming across the borders. It's not just that. We have to protect South African borders from international interests. There are international corporations, organizations, and governments just benefiting from our resources.
Sure.
So I believe that the people of South Africa should benefit from the country's resources. And the state borders should be protected. And there should be international relations, but on our terms.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be the beggars at the table all the time. It should be on our terms only. So we want to strengthen our borders. That's the main function of national government, and that's not happening. Strengthen our military as well, which I think will instill in our entire country, in our entire citizenship, a feeling of discipline and pride in our nation, which we need. And I think it can also provide an avenue and an opportunity for youth to find that direction they might not have gotten from their parents.
So you believe in military conscription?
Not conscription. Voluntary. Voluntary, incentivized, but not conscription, no. Freedom,
for kids
remember?
To use as a platform.
As an avenue, yeah. I mean, how much unemployment, how much trauma exists in our younger generations right now?
Sorry to interrupt. I'll try and get back to where you were, because you were speaking about government structures, a strong national government, removing provincial structures. You are the third person that I sit with that emphasizes that provincial government structures are redundant and are kind of useless. As I said, I'd sat with Solim Simanga, the premier candidate of the DA, and he would like more power for the provinces. But I got him to answer how much power he thinks they have now. Okay. And he said he thinks it's maybe under 20%. I'm like, so you agree that they're kind of not really that important currently. So there almost is a call for the removal of that. And I don't know if that's going to be an ongoing discussion. Very, very important one.
I hope so.
The second point is the borders. And, you know, ordinary South Africans speak a lot about illegal foreigners who come in, maybe take jobs, commit crimes, etc. And you're highlighting all the other aspects of the importance of borders, which include the movement of goods and services in and out, drugs, illicit cigarettes, minerals that are maybe being taken out in nefarious ways, etc. And it's not just other people coming in. It's also people bringing things in. They might even just be here, bring things and leave, or people coming to take things out. Some of those things could be human beings in terms of trafficking. So that's fundamentally important. I don't know if I had another point. Oh, a military. General Bantu Olomisa of the UDM joined the army because they promised him that he might play for Transkei. It would be the easiest way to get into the national team for them at the time.
That's cute.
But I've met so many other people who have joined the army because they say you get access to education there, and you can, we've got medical doctors, we've got chefs, we've got pilots. I'd like to be a pilot. My parents don't have money. I can't go to pilot school. And apparently the easiest way is to join the army. They'll pay for everything. I'll get my hours. And so you're very right in that for many young people who are maybe lost and don't know what is out there for them, the military could be a really, really great platform voluntarily for them to get in there. I want to serve my country, but I could acquire so much more.
If we even expand on that a little bit, if you look at previous generations, and now I'm married to someone that's 16 years older than me. And he was, No comment. No comment. He was the last year to serve conscription, compulsory
Okay.
military. And I feel like the older generation just has so much more grit, determination, and ability to bring about success, whereas younger generations that haven't had that experience tend to feel lost a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I feel like it could, if more youth explored that avenue, it would later down the line benefit our country greatly.
Sure.
Strengthen the citizens.
I
It is
agree.
about strengthening the citizens, not strengthening the government.
This is why I love rugby as a sport. Personally, I think all young boys should play rugby because there are so many things you learn there that help you become a protector of your family, discipline, and you're very right. I'll mention these two men, even though they are deemed polarizing figures. Donald Trump, Robert Kiyosaki are very big supporters of boys going for military training, and they've said that it's helped them a lot in business, the discipline, the understanding. Because the things that they say is, look, in the military, and if ever you go to war, people die in real life.
Yeah.
So when you go into business and you have that mindset of people die in real life, the idea of a business failing is not really a big deal. But because you have discipline and you understand teamwork and you understand serving the collective, it really helps them. It's helped them a lot in business.
I love that.
Yeah. Government structures, you believe provinces or provincial structures should be gone.
Yes.
National government should be strong. And your first emphasis was the borders.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like
Yes.
national government
National
to
government,
be responsible
the
for?
overall, now we'll call it the justice system. We want to implement a national justice system at a national level to prevent things like vigilante groups and kangaroo courts, where someone that's just accused of hurting someone gets brutally murdered by the community. So that's why we believe it needs to happen at a national level. And then thirdly, infrastructure and resources. So this is the finances, this is managing the tax. When it comes to resources and infrastructure, it also means roads at a national level, public transport at a national level. And spatial planning, which is now local government prerogative, I believe should actually be looked at a national level.
Interesting.
In oversight, in a oversight form. And then...
So local should still do their thing, but national should come in and maybe say, look, this may not work because you're not working in isolation.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So this is in order to help local governments be as self-reliant as possible. So now we go, so this is everything, I've just described everything in national government briefly. Local government would take care literally of everything else. Medical, education, and everything else government does currently would happen at a local government election. So if you look at the current borders of our local governments, we have local municipalities, and then a number of local municipalities will make up a district. And then we have metro municipalities where the population is larger. We want to take the district municipalities as they stand right now with their borders, and then take the metros and perhaps divide some of the metros up into 2 or 3 or 4. And these will form new local governments in which everything will be administered. And this is why at national level, spatial planning is looked after, because they'll look at a local government and say, okay, they have a lot of industry, but they have very little agriculture. And then they will help with that to make sure that every local government can look after itself. The idea here is that there's going to be a huge transitionary period because we have a huge portion of the population dependent on government services and government grants. We acknowledge that. We would never end that overnight. It's something that you have to wean the people off of.
Yeah.
And so you might have in a local government lots of public schools, and you might have a couple of public hospitals. But the idea is that over time, the community starts to take over, and NGOs that are not government funded start to form, so that eventually, maybe 100 years down the line, if not sooner, you have these little pockets of local governments that have no government services. They're doing it all for themselves. And this is how I believe society will progress.
They're doing it all for themselves. Again, these are the things that fascinated me about what you guys stand for, because these are things I've been speaking about for the last couple of years.
I just want to interrupt, if you don't mind, and
Go
say,
for it.
From a religious perspective, so I'm a Christian, and we are a party that doesn't subscribe to a specific religion. We are a party of all kind of beliefs, but there is a quote from the scriptures that says, like, there should be no poor among us. And that's what it is, basically. The less government control there is, the more space there is for people to progress. So you have to remove this overprotective parent that government is so that we can finally mature from being a toddler to being a teenager to being an adult. And as long as government takes all the power, people won't progress. We will always be stuck with the same problems.
There's a lot of people that would argue against that. I want to push back a little bit. You would like the legal system to be at a national level to avoid things like mob justice, kangaroo courts, and the like. But you'd like things like medical considerations, schooling, etc., to be at a local level. Do you not think that local governments or local areas or communities should have a say on what they deem to be justice? Maybe over time, if not immediate, even if it's different?
Well, I think, our society is going to look different because one of the things that we believe is that you have the right to defend yourself and you have the right to defend your property.
Okay.
Whereas if you look at constitutionally right now, that's not the case. If someone tries to kill you, your recourse actually should be to go to SAPS if you actually look at what the Constitution says.
Sure.
And I've even heard politicians say things like, if someone tries to stab you, you can't shoot them. You need to come at them with the same measure of weaponry they have, which I think is ridiculous.
It's very ridiculous.
So I believe that we are promoting a mindset amongst citizens that you need to look after yourself. You are your own responsibility.
Sure.
Yes, there might be people that are vulnerable right now, depending on grants, different story. Government needs to help them become self-reliant. But in a society like that, you're going to be wiser. You're going to be a wiser citizen. You're going to be a more awake citizen. And you're not going to find yourself being the victim of crime like we find ourselves today in this current system.
My question is, why would you leave legal to national and not local? Let's say, for example, one of the local municipalities believes in the death penalty.
Yeah.
Another one believes that for a certain crime, it's 5 years. Another one believes for a certain crime, it's 10 years. Why would you not want communities to define that for themselves?
Precisely because of those examples you give, because you might have one local municipality that's extremely strict. They might decide,
I think America's like that, by the way.
Imagine they decide
different
that
states have different laws.
Imagine we have like Handmaid's Tale come into play, where they decide now women must just be baby making machines.
I've never seen it, but I've heard some of the very spicy things about it.
Yeah.
So women must become baby making machines. Yes. I want to go to that state today. I'm kidding.
And not be in the corporate environment, for instance, not be able to make their own choices. So what you'll have, that's the thing. We want society to advance, not go backwards.
Sure.
And because of that, I think that in different local municipalities, I personally do not believe in the death penalty at all. And I will make it my business to make sure that the death penalty doesn't come to be in South Africa.
Sure.
Because I don't want people to go through that. I think it's a very ancient, old way of doing things. And I think we need to move past that. I think we need to move towards more progressive ways of dealing with our criminals, in opposed to just suggesting, the death penalty as a quick out. I think you can actually, if someone commits a crime, so what we would consider a crime within our system is if you're taking someone's freedoms away. Freedom to live. So if you've murdered them, you've taken away their freedom to live. If you've raped them, you've taken away a lot of their freedom.
Sure.
I mean, rape victims and molestation victims, their entire lives are turned upside down for the rest of their lives. So you have taken away their life. So you'll suffer. If you steal, you are taking away people's livelihood or you're taking away people's possessions. So you would face the wrath of the justice system then. And then we'd have to work out what is fair punishment. And I'm saying punishment, not just putting you away in a box, but punishment for that. And perhaps we could use, and this is frowned upon in the international community, but perhaps we could use prisoners to build government infrastructure.
Slavery. Some people call it slavery. I think in America they use prisoners for labor. In South Africa we used to, I don't know if we still do, but I think they'd get some type of compensation.
Yeah.
I just have an issue with the lack of consistency. But it's not for us to do a deep dive, because I think you're trying to empower communities to be as self-sufficient as possible and to trust themselves with their children's schooling, with their healthcare needs, even maybe getting weapons to protect yourself.
I actually think the education systems, next to the government, the biggest obstacle to our progress. It has destroyed generations.
Sure.
Since 1994. So since 1994, fun fact, the United Nations has been in there affecting our curriculum. And because of that, what we see is a generation of unemployables. So when people leave school and they become successful, It's not because of school. It's in spite of school.
Geez, you're also anti-school.
Absolutely.
We'll go into schooling because I'm sensitive about it. So you want to build these very strong, hopefully very intelligent communities, but you're almost arguing that you don't trust them enough to decide what is justice for themselves outside of everything else. So it's just that inconsistency. And like I said, we don't have to do a deep dive, but I hope it's something that you guys will consider. Not to say that the communities must do their own thing, but it's to say maybe over time, for now, because it's a major issue and we are one country, I hope you can consider, if certain communities prove that they do the right thing, to give them more of that power, to be like, you guys can set some laws with some maybe oversight until, instead of just saying national government, they take care of the legal stuff, you guys can't do that.
I see what you're saying. But also with what we're implementing, we see these plans as something that needs to evolve as well.
Sure.
So we're not here to come and change the system and this is how the system needs to be forever and eternity.
Dope.
We believe that the next generation needs to take upon themselves the responsibility to progress it even further and further and further. This is ever changing democracy.
That's beautiful.
That's what democracy should be. It should change as people progress, and that has not happened in 30 years.
So the UN has infiltrated our education system.
100%.
I don't know if you want to say something about that, and whether you do or not, what would your vision be for schooling for this country?
Oh, so much. Get kids out of classrooms. Take children from, and this is me speaking, this is not as far as organic humanity movement goes, we haven't got policies.
Yeah.
We have principles and we have values, and we will shape solutions that are based on those principles and values.
Okay.
So when it comes to schooling, mainly speaking my opinion when it comes to the details, but I believe that primary school, kids should be outside. Kids should be learning instruments. Kids should be doing art. Kids should be doing theater and dance. And I say this because we have a very traumatized population.
That is true.
Kids are growing up seeing their parents drunk and fighting. They're seeing atrocious things taking place. Things kids should never have the burden of witnessing and being part of, and being abused as well. And what has been taught out there about trauma is that in order to heal and overcome trauma, you need to move your body, you need to explore, you need to have fun. And when a child comes into a classroom and they've just been screamed at by their crazy parents, and they've just witnessed their dad hit their mom, and now the teacher wants to tell them that 4 + 4 = 8, nothing's going to go in at all. So you need to open them up first and get them physiologically and within their nervous systems ready to learn. And that's not happening. And this is why we have the crisis we have in our schooling system, the failure rate. And kids can't read anymore and they're stuck on their phones. And what we need to do is just make sure kids in the junior school levels are healthy human beings, emotionally and mentally. We don't have to fill their brains. They don't have to read so young. They don't have to have this pressure to perform. They need to do the creative things. And when you foster creativity, that's when you'll actually find scientific and technological advancements taking place for the first time ever. Because even the most profound scientific discoveries, I believe, started with a creative inquisitivity first, a curiosity, a creativity. And that is something that's killed at school level. So what I want to see in the country is complete flexibility in the school system. And then when kids get to 12, 13, 14, then we can start with the more serious subjects and try find what is their passion, what is their heart purpose, and help develop and direct them into that.
So they must go play for 12 years.
Play for, Well, remember they start school at what, 5, 6, 7?
Yeah.
The president wants to make it compulsory, but we don't believe that. I mean, kids...
Is that the billable?
Part of the billable. Yeah.
I get a lot of DMs about people wanting me to go in on that because I've made videos about homeschooling in the past. I experimented with my kids.
You know what? Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an resistance nut myself.
A rebellious spirit. So I love to hear that you homeschool, or you tried experimenting with homeschooling. I homeschool my 4 children. It's a journey.
You homeschooled or you homeschool?
Homeschool them.
Currently.
Currently.
That's dope.
That's
a conversation on its own.
It's a conversation on its own. And I think if we start to see flexibility in the school system, society will start to progress. So what we have is people exit the school system. If you're privileged, you'll go to university. If you're lucky, the government will give you a bursary and you'll go to university. But you're not actually equipped to deal with everything that happens at university. I didn't go to university, and quite frankly, I'm grateful I didn't, because I did not have the maturity at that stage to have acted responsibly
on your own.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do think it's so important that we equip our children. Three things that school needs to do. Minimum. That is increase the child's IQ, increase the child's EQ, and let them leave the schooling environment with a tangible, marketable skill at the very least.
I hope I'll remember these points. Amish, Elon Musk. What are my other points? Okay, homeschooling we touched on. Doesn't matter. Oh, Sir Ken Robinson, one of my favorites.
Love him.
So when you mentioned Handmaid's Tale, I just thought of a reference when we spoke about schooling of communities deciding, no, we're going to go Amish with how we raise our kids and not do this traditional school thing. The next reference was Elon Musk. I think he's got, he's got quite a couple of children, but I think for his 5 boys at the time, what made him start Ad Astra, not sure what it's called now, also a form of homeschooling, but it was the kids at his office with scientists that were kind of guiding them, learning how to use tools. It was also that whole story of school is not equipping children with the ability to solve problems and teaching them how to use tools for problem solving.
Children are taught by teachers, not experts.
Please explain or elaborate on what you're saying.
So if I want my child to learn human biology, I want them to talk to a doctor. I want them to talk to a brain surgeon.
Sure.
I want them to talk to a physiotherapist.
I'm going to say something inappropriate. My mom's been in teaching her whole life, and my brother was a school teacher. You want your child to be taught by someone who's in an industry, hopefully passionate about an industry, an ability to convey the skills or the information, and not someone who didn't do well at school and teaching became a fallback because that's all they could kind of get into, which is what we have now. The smartest kids in class that we were with are not school teachers.
They're not.
And then we're going to act surprised as to why our quality of teachers is the way it is.
Exactly.
When those who are brilliant in class are not the people teaching our schools, are teaching our children.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's Elon Musk. So Ken Robinson, I've told the story before. I'm not going to tell it again. People can go and find it somewhere. One of my favorite TED Talks is where he speaks about schooling. I think he's from the UK somewhere, England or something. And I wanted to make the reference of what you were saying, that it's so sad how preschool, grade R, creche, grade 1, we would start off class. I don't know if it's still the same much today. We would start off class with singing in the morning. Then we'd paint and draw and, work with Play-Doh and those things. And it's like, as you get older, all of that stuff gets conditioned out of you. And it's kind of weird when you find kids in high school, tertiary, it's like, you draw. Oh my gosh, you sing, as if we're not all meant to be singing. Because at some point in our schooling, no matter how bad you were, we all sang, we all danced, we all drew pictures. And then we were conditioned out of it. And some of us could have been good at it, but we were taken out. So Ken Robinson speaks about holistic learning, where he says when we're young, we use the whole body. Mm-hmm. And as you get older, it moves up and then it moves to your brain and into one side of the brain, which is the focus on STEM. And then we kind of lose all this other stuff. And we are a creative nation. I mean, if you look at our TikTok videos, if you look at some of our celebrities in music, in acting, in the visual arts, it's like these people should not be the exceptions, because clearly we are a creative country. Why are we not stimulating that more and having all kids, even if you're not that talented, go play a sport, go get involved in art, and because you never know. You can, when you zone in high school, when you zone in on maths or science because you're passionate and you love it and you want to be an engineer, but you're like, but I also play football. I also play the violin because we just believe in holistic learning. I
love that, because we're not meant to be just one thing.
Correct.
We are complex human beings.
Yeah.
With many interests.
Healthcare. Oof. I wanted to make a note on the legal system, but maybe not here. I think the legal system, I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a lawyer, attorney. I think the legal system is the system that actually angers me the most.
Okay.
I thought it was politics. I thought politics was the beginning and the end, and maybe the financial system. The issue I have with our legal system in this country, sorry, this is me just sharing my frustrations. It's not necessarily a question. The legal system, so-called justice system, is meant to be the safe space for everyone, regardless. Whether politicians are corrupt or not, whether someone stole money or not, you're meant to be like our place of refuge because the president has got foreign currency in his couches. Our refuge because there are illegal people maybe stealing something. Our place of refuge because my partner beat me up. My child is being violated is meant to be this place. Now in this country, this place is not free, number one. And where it is free, the service is substandard. It cannot be that my level of justice is based on how much money I have. That is almost like a human rights violation.
Yes.
No, we unfortunately had to drop the charges because we didn't have money for the... That can't be humanly correct. We've got the Vodacom story now, which has been dragging on for long. And luckily, Nkosana Makete has a legal team that was like, look, we'll ride through because we're hoping at some point there'll be a big payday. So you don't have to pay us now. Otherwise, he probably would have dropped charges because it would have been too expensive.
Absolutely.
At some point. You've got situations where you and I commit the same crime. We go and face a magistrate, and depending on who has money or not, one will sleep at home, the other person will sleep in a cell. That is not just.
Not at all.
At all. And then we've got all these politicians who have committed so many crimes, from corruption. There've been rape allegations. Some of them have abused people, and the treatment they get from that same supposed safe space. And then you have to tell people, no, just go to the courts. You're like, why would I go there when I can obviously see that this place it's not for us. It's for them. Anyways, sorry, I was just venting.
It's okay, but it shows that our systems are there to oppress, designed to oppress. So now in our founding document, we say we are a liberal because we believe in people having the freedom of choice to decide how they want to live their lives. Decolonizing because we believe all these systems come from those who oppressed the country before.
Sure. They are colonial systems, legacy colonial systems that we unfortunately haven't evolved
We
past.
have not moved on from them. And then we are anti-establishment because we believe in freedom from corporate control. And I think corporations control us in so many ways that we don't even notice. Most of us can't go a day without going to a shop, for instance.
Sure.
And then lastly, a liberation movement. So that is really...
You are a liberation movement.
We want to liberate people.
That's dope.
Thanks.
I'd like you to speak on the 4 votes that you guys are proposing. You guys are proposing that people should be voting in 4 ways. What are those 4 ways and how does it work?
Are you talking about... Yeah, okay. So if I understand your question correctly, you'll vote for the president. So we're changing the electoral system, so you won't vote for political parties anymore. You will vote
once Om gets into power.
Well, we then have
political parties are gone.
No.
Oh, boy.
Getting into power is a loosely used term. It's more like once the constitution we put forward is legislated.
Okay.
So the constitution, we're going to rewrite the constitution.
The current constitution.
Yeah.
You guys would like to be like, we would like to...
rewrite this thing.
That's dope.
And then once that's in place, all parties will dissolve. And then we can say, okay, a year from now, we're going to go to elections. Because remember, people need time to campaign. Parties no longer recognized. It means that with that, the government will save over 300,000 Rand a year because the government funds parties that are represented currently. And then what will happen is that...
Sorry, I just want to mention something there. I read something where for these elections that are upcoming, taxpayers' money, 5 million Rand, is going to the political parties that are in parliament for campaigning, of which the ANC gets the lion's share. Sorry.
Maybe 5 million extra.
From government?
Yeah.
They get more from government. This is not from their own private funding.
No, just themselves. No, they get 325 million a year, all of them combined.
From?
Government.
325 million.
Yes, this is not paying for MP salaries. This is not paying for your public representatives. This is for the organization.
To say, as the ANC DAEFF, here's money from taxpayers for your political party to keep running.
Correct.
325 million.
If you are represented in national and if you're represented in provincial government, you will get a piece of the pie. So it depends. The more seats you have, the more money you get. This is besides the corporate funding. This is besides the personal donors.
Before I get too depressed, please continue. Once we come in, the political parties get dissolved and then a year into elections because people need to campaign.
Yeah. So you, for instance, could approach, the IC will exist. So the Chapter 9 institutions will still exist, but in different shapes and forms. There'll be 4 Chapter 9 institutions, not 9. So what will happen, the IC will still exist, but it will take on, I think, a stronger and bigger role. So you could approach the IC and say, I want to be the presidential candidate for the 2029 elections or whatever. And then you will have to prove support. So just like we had barriers in place now to contest, you'll also have to have signatures. You'll also have to pay a fee. We're proposing that a president has, and it's not a decided number, it's something we'll have to discuss in Parliament, between 5,000 and 10,000 signatures to be the presidential candidate. To be an MP candidate, 2,000 to 5,000, because remember your constituencies will be different sizes, more or less. So you have to
based
look at
on the community you come from.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then mayor will need a minimum 2,000 signatures. A councillor, well, some wards are very small. We'll need like 200. Right now it is 200 signatures, for instance.
Okay.
And then pay a fee as well, nothing too exorbitant. We'll obviously have to work out the new costs and everything because everything's going to be different. And then people will vote same time, same day. We're not going to separate it. You vote for your president. You vote for your MP, regional MP. You vote for your mayor. You vote for your local ward councillor.
4 votes. I get to pick the president.
Yes.
I get to pick the member of parliament that represents my geography.
Yes.
I get to pick my mayor.
Yes.
And I get to pick my ward councillor.
Individuals that you can hold accountable. Here's the beautiful part that the whole world has missed. I don't know how the whole world missed this. There are countries all over the world that declare themselves democracies. But we say voting in someone is only 50% of the democracy. You need to have a method of voting someone out. And so we are proposing that, for instance, if you're a mayor of a municipality and you have to get 2,000 signatures, we're going to need the citizens, at least 75% of that, to come forward to the IEC with a motion of no confidence. So many signatures, we do not believe that the mayor is doing her job. And then we'll go into a by-election for that specific role at that specific level of government. So there's always an opportunity to vote out your representative.
An individual, which is very important.
And they can't hide behind a party.
Sure.
And then people have control. And if you don't like any of the candidates, you can become a candidate. And in fact, it's your duty to do so.
Sure.
In a democracy.
What do you think of the... I may be mistaken. The Chinese method. So you've got the Chinese Communist Party, which arguably works on meritocracy, depending on who you ask. But they almost have this model, and again, I could be incorrect, where you almost have to work your way up. You can't, like we now, I can go and join a political party and become their presidential candidate. You have to serve from, let's say, for example, ward councillor, do a good job. If the people like you, they're the ones that almost ask for you to be promoted to mayor. From mayor to, we'd have a premier today, but not, and then all the way to the top. So that by the time you get to the top, you've worked at all levels and you can show a track record. So people are like, oh no, we know this guy. Not our community, but we've seen the communities around. That guy is quite hot. So we want him all the way up because we'd love him to have some influence on the work that we're doing.
Absolutely not.
No,
because what I'm looking at, and I'm not an expert on international politics and foreign affairs, but what I see here is a state leader doing everything in his power to prevent competition for himself. So it's going to take a long time, but then he's caught on, oh, this person wants to become the leader. This person wants to become the president. I know this. And then he can put things in place to stop the evolution so quickly. So
the only reason I'm asking is I can run as a presidential candidate, but people are going to be like, you've never even served as a ward councillor or as a mayor before.
It doesn't matter. It's about what...
It shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter. So I think from a inherently human rights perspective, anyone should be able to represent anyone. If 1,000 people or if 1 million people believe a homeless person needs to be their representative, that's their right. So the thing is about a democracy is that you are accountable for your actions and decisions and also the collective. So, and it does go back to the individual at the end. If the whole country elects an idiot, then they're going to suffer the consequences.
You guys pick this person.
Through that suffering, what happens is that you will then progress and next time make a different decision.
Do you guys believe in some type of track record, let's say campaigning? So currently, when people campaign, it's based on what people said. It's based on what the manifesto says, it's based on their policies versus don't say anything. Just show us what you've done in the last year, 2 years, 5 years, and then we'll compare it to what other people on a relative basis have done and say, oh, this person scored 20% on security, this person scored 5% on health. So this is actually the better candidate. I can vote for whoever I want, but at least they can show us that I'm actually better equipped. Do you guys believe in something like that?
I could imagine private people would probably develop things like that. And there'd probably be a lot of debate. But the way we see it, so you as Pen wants to apply to be the president.
Sure.
You have to get 5,000 signatures. You have to actually approach individuals and say, I am running. I want to run to be the president.
Sure.
Will you sign this for me?
I can be rich and I can send my people to go and collect the signatures.
You could, but those people still have to give their signatures.
True.
And then you're going to have other candidates. You're not the only candidate.
Sure, but I'm going to buy my people KFC though. So I'm just worried about. Sorry, I apologize. I go out. I have to get 5,000 signatures, so people see that it's me. Yes. That's then they decide.
Yes.
Track record or otherwise.
So remember, you might give 5,000 people a bucket of KFC each. Now you are a candidate. Now you have to campaign. Now, in order to become the president, you're still going to need millions of votes. So these barriers are in place.
Okay.
And I think it will work out. I think what will happen is that the less control, and this is the other thing, when a politician sees a problem, they salivate because they think now is an opportunity to write new legislation to control people instead of empowering people.
We saw that with the pandemic, and it actually, one of the things that makes me sad. I want to speak on independence a bit. One of the things I've said on platforms, including when I went to visit Gareth Cliff, I think we just won the World Cup as South Africa, and I was like, the idea of having a Springbok parliament is something that sounds very appealing to me. Because currently we've got 400 members of parliament, or we're meant to have 400. And realistically, the average South African might know 5, maybe 10. If you claim that you're politically astute, I once went through the whole list. I think I know 63 out of 400 people. So it's really bad. I was like, imagine a parliament where ordinary people can actually boast about at least half, whether it's 400 or we cut it down to 200 and say, these are the people. And if ever we had to compete globally at a Olympics of parliaments, we know that our guys are quite top. And right now we don't have that.
No, we don't.
And the idea of independence is appealing to me specifically because you can actually point and say, we put that person, or if he's your representative, that's our guy. Look at how he fares compared to other parliamentarians. He's pretty dope, or she's pretty dope, and we're really proud of them. And then other people can watch and say, you know, whether it's KZN, Western Cape, their candidates are quite hot this year. So it's going to be pretty cool. I like that. And it's something that I hope to see while we're here.
It's going to foster some healthy competition.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's very exciting. I mean, when I think about it, I'm really excited to live in this future South Africa.
How big do you think Parliament should be, and how regularly do you think we should vote?
I at the moment, just for the case of simplicity, we're keeping at 400. So if you take 400 and divide it by the population, it works out to about 150,000 per representative at national level. We don't think that's too unreasonable.
Okay.
If we have to halve that, then the representative is now looking after 300,000, representing 300,000. So then they might become a little bit out of touch with the people. So we're relatively happy with the 400. Could we reduce it over time to 350 and then 300? We open to exploring that.
Especially as the communities get stronger?
Definitely, especially because communities will be doing most of the service delivery that affects you and I on an everyday basis.
Yeah. How regularly do you think we should vote?
Every 5 years.
You're happy with that?
Definitely.
What are your opinions on Oriana? I'm only asking because a lot of what you're proposing, I think, is a lot of what they claiming to pilot. They've got their own local municipality that they built from scratch. They do their own service delivery. They've built their own school. For all intents and purposes, they now have solar that they're trying to go fully off-grid. They're trying to be... I'm not asking about Oriana as a, Afrikaner dorp. I'm just asking the project of...
I don't think you can ask about Oriana without asking about the Afrikaner dorp.
Okay, please go for it.
I believe for a progressive society, if we want South Africa... So my vision for South Africa is that the rest of the modern world will look to us as examples of what a democracy and progressive society should be.
Yeah.
And we will be leaders and innovators in the world, South Africa. While the rest of the world is falling apart, while Canada and America and Britain are falling apart, they'll look to us. And I believe that so integral to a society that has progressed past survival mode is a mix of cultures, beliefs, and ideas. That's actually so important to a thriving democracy. So to have like a single culture in a region, that will never happen. Even with the demarcations we've set out for local government, they are broad enough to incorporate all sectors of society. And that is extremely important.
Do you believe in forced integration?
Not forced.
What if a certain community wants to get rid of certain people as a majority, 75%?
Get rid of?
Yeah.
Everyone has a right to live wherever they want to.
But a certain community says no. Some of these people we don't want.
This is a good example why national government needs to take care of the justice sector.
Okay.
Because inherently, that is wrong. You're just going to exile your neighbors because you don't like them.
So I'll use maybe a more practical example. Speaking about multicultural spaces. We've got very big townships. Maybe Soweto as an example. Largely black. It may have different cultures in terms of Zulu, Xhosa, Swati, Tsonga, etc., but largely black, and it is not, let's say, multiracial. No. And you may find certain neighborhoods in certain spaces where they will try and organize, if we go communal, and whoever runs the state agencies, they'll make sure that certain people are told, no, that house is gone. Meanwhile, the house is available, and because people do that. You've got certain Muslim communities, colored, Indian, etc. My question is, you get a community of 150,000 people that sit down in their own weird ways, and they try and get it done, and they're like, no, this is how we are, and this is how we want to operate. Do you support something like that? Because I'm bringing it back to Oriana. They did it.
On a personal level, I despise that kind of thinking. And
Sure.
I know I'll probably... I don't know how the rest of South Africa feels, but I despise that. I despise that exists. We actually, and I know it's not going to be the solution, but to change the mindset, we want to get rid of color classifications.
Race.
Race, yes. Race is
Completely.
a social construct.
No, that is correct.
So I believe we actually ignore our beautiful cultures when we just see ourselves as a color.
Sure.
Race. So it will never be in an ID book. It will never be on a birth certificate. It will never be in surveys or demographics. Sometimes you apply for something, credit or whatever, and you have to put your race.
Sure.
That won't exist. That cannot exist in an OM society and world. And we don't want to force anyone to do anything.
Yeah.
But when you have a country that has progressed to a point where there are better laws, better forms of government, it shouldn't matter what belief systems your neighbor has. It shouldn't matter what color their skin is, because we're all living in the same South Africa based on the same values and principles. And if your neighbor breaks the law, then they break the law, then they need to suffer the consequences. But wanting to foster, and also I hate it when people speak about minorities this, minorities that. It drives me up the wall, because maybe I'm just a few years ahead here, but I actually have absolute pride and love for South Africa, and I want people to feel, dare I say, patriotic about our country.
Yeah.
And we're all a part of it. We have a very complicated history. I don't deny that. But at the same time, we need to move forward, let go of the things that are not working for us, which is a lot in the political system, and move towards a place where we can strengthen our sovereign state and eventually get to the point where we can stand strong in the world as the example of what society can look like, where people can live free in a democracy.
Outside of or let's assuming Oriana was a multicultural space. I don't know if you've studied it enough. Would you say that's somewhat of a model of what Home is looking for?
No, I've been to Oriana once.
Sure.
And it felt weird. It felt like there was something missing.
I wonder what it was.
No, but what's actually missing is, I feel like, innovation, intellect. It was missing that. It's like people decided to break away from a paradigm they were not happy with, and they're rotting there. Rotting there.
Hectic.
That was my perspective. It was many years ago.
Okay.
That was my perspective. There's no intellect, innovation, advancement, progress. So yes, they had their own currency, their own schools. But this is why I say, for a society to progress, you really do need that multiculturalism to exist, because we bounce off each other, we feed off each other. We're very different in religious, philosophical, and lifestyles. We're very different in having that discourse in society. And this is why, even in our democracy that we're envisioning, we believe that there should be robust public debate, and no one should ever fear saying what they want to say. No one should ever fear offending somebody.
Sure.
There should be this free discourse taking place. That is so important.
When you get a chance, please, when you get a chance, I'll probably remind you as well, please watch my sit down with the leader of Oriana, Mr. U.S. Stradom. I hope it will be educational.
Okay. Do you have a different perspective?
Whether it changes some of your beliefs or not, it doesn't matter to me. I'd just like you to hear what he has to say.
Sure.
Specifically when you mentioned innovation, and I'd just like you to hear what they have to say. What are your thoughts on religious schools? So there's a rise in South Africa of Islamic schools. They do brilliantly academically. A lot of them show up on the top 10 lists in every province. We've had a lot of Christian schools. I mean, you've got St. Dominic's, you've got your saints, this and that and the other.
Exactly.
Very Christian. And now we've got a rise of Islamic schools as well. In a space where you believe in multiculturalism, etc. Whether in your personal capacity or as Om, do you support that, or do you believe in schools being more liberal in their intake and in their ideologies?
So it's pretty simple. Our first principle, we have 6 principles. Maybe we can go through them a little later. But the first principle is liberty. So people have the freedom to do what they want.
Sure.
And as a parent, you have custodianship over your children. And if you want to raise them in your religion, you have the freedom to do so. So absolutely.
Sure.
So I'd say that those schools should probably be privately funded.
Okay.
Whereas a government-funded school would probably be more generic, more neutral.
Okay.
But absolutely, this is how we want to do it. If I had to break it down into phases, there's a transitionary period where a lot of people will still use public services for quite a while, and there will be lots of public schools. But then we want to encourage people to do things differently. If you can't homeschool your children, try get them to a cottage school. So homeschooling should be the norm, should be your first option. If you can't do
homeschooling should be the first option.
Yes.
I fully disagree, but please continue and I'll explain.
If you look at, and this is just an example, this applies to all governments. If you look at you read our manifesto, we say that the first level of government is self-governance. Then family, then community. Those are unofficial, but equally as important as then local and national. So for any problem, can I solve the problem myself? So you have children, they need to be educated. Can you homeschool them? Yes, I can. Fine, problem solved. No, I can't. Let's look at a cottage school next. Can't do a cottage school?
What is a cottage school for people that don't know?
It's more of an informal, it's a private initiative. Usually a bunch of homeschoolers get together.
Sure.
They elect a couple of parents to do the teaching.
Correct.
And then they decide what their schedule is and what activities the kids do.
Sure.
It's very cute.
So if not homeschooling, then cottage schooling?
If not cottage schooling, then private schooling, which can take so many shapes and forms. If not private schooling, then last resort. If you can't do any of the above, then the last resort, public school. But then our public schooling is not going to look like it does now.
Sure.
Especially for junior school, it's going to be fun, playful, sport-orientated, music-orientated, etc.
No, thank you. I'm going to disagree just a little bit, but it doesn't really have to be a discussion. I was very, very pro homeschooling for the longest time. And it's these things of getting your heart broken when you engage people and realize that people don't want freedom and all those things. The average South African parent, for various reasons, does not have the capacity to homeschool, does not have the time, does not have the resources, does not have the skills, and most important, does not have the interest. to homeschool, and that's normally the barrier. So for me, the starting point, especially now, but even in an ideal world, the ideal is the starting point should be public, and if you have the capacity, and then homeschooling is most ideal, and then you can look at the other options. That's the only reason I disagree.
Okay.
Most parents even hate even helping their kids with homework, and then you want them to homeschool. It's like, why? This Lauren lady, shut her down. I know. So you're taking me from homework to homeschooling to, I had this during COVID. I don't want this. They must go away.
No, my kids were actually in the public school during COVID, and being confronted with their work every day, because the schools were sending the parents the work. Oof. Now I had 4. So it was a nightmare, and then that's where I decided, no, this is not good quality schooling. So I understand what you're saying. It's just that we need to, as responsible citizens, understand the order. Acknowledge, I don't want to homeschool my children. Fine, don't. Then look at the other options. Teach
people the option, because most don't even know that it exists.
Exactly.
Yeah, teach them and tell them this is what it takes.
And I believe if we go back to the name Organic Humanity Movement, it is the more natural option.
Correct.
Homeschooling and cottage schooling is the more natural option. But if you can't, fine. You have the freedom to then explore private and public options.
Because the schooling method is a artificial intervention by human beings. When you have children, I use the example of Simba and Mufasa. Mufasa and Sarabi are meant to teach Simba. It's just what it is. You have children, you teach them. Even if you're a bit slow, even if that they're your children. But in the world we live in, you try to send them to people that you hope are better qualified. Yeah. But what's most organic is you teaching your own kids your ignorance, because they're yours. I think
in an ideal world, children having, for the first few years at least, having that closeness with their parents is extremely important to their development, self-worth, self-esteem. And you can't control someone that has self-esteem.
You can't.
And that's
you cannot. That's a wild animal that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want, I sometimes joke, I want a country of ungovernables. We have to be ungovernable in our mentality, so that we haven't got control exerted upon ourselves.
Sure. Financial system is a huge one for me. It probably falls under political in my frustrations. Your thoughts around Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, alternative monies in the future, maybe under OHM, or just your own views?
I'm open to all alternatives.
Okay.
I have no true expertise on cryptocurrencies, although I do believe that we need alternatives to the current financial system, which I see as a global financial system. So a lot of the things we've highlighted, politics, education, they all fall subject to the mainstream financial system. And we spoke earlier about this. There's no exit from the system, no matter what. That doesn't end in tragedy. And when I started home and when I was involved in politics, what I identified was that there's no access to land ownership without either getting a piece of land from government because they're giving you a house, or selling your soul to some job you might not even like for years and years. So I love speaking politics with my kids, because they're like, what? How does this work?
Sure.
Because I explain to them, okay, you might, if you are lucky and your parents help you, maybe at 25, you can purchase your first property. Then you're going to spend the next 20 to 40 years paying that thing off, paying interest upon interest upon interest. So if you buy a house for 1.5 million, you're going to end up paying around 3 million. Not exact maths, but that is ridiculous. Correct. So in order to just live and exist,
and the rates and taxes are never ending.
Different story altogether. It is absolutely disgusting that you can't exist outside of the system. No one is free in this entire world. None of us. And I feel like that's an injustice against humanity. We need pockets of freedom where people can, yes, choose to have your job, choose to go the conventional route, but then also have the option to not.
Two alternatives are bartering and local currencies. So bartering, I don't know if you have any views on bartering. And then the second one is local currencies, of which the Ora from Oriana is an example, where different communities pick something of a voucher system to say we want to keep money.
I can definitely see local governments doing that within their communities. I see no problem with that. The reason why I think that doesn't happen mainstream is that the government wants as much tax as possible. So we definitely believe in lessening tax and empowering the informal sector. That's extremely important. So you decide to just, I don't know, sew a dishcloth and sell it. and to your neighbor.
Sure.
The government now wants to take a piece of that pie.
That's
We're
correct.
saying the informal training sector should absolutely be empowered.
We had David Ansari here, the CEO of the Free Market Foundation. He believes that capitalism is the best way to freedom, and the ability to make your own money is the best way to get free. And some of the things you've said, he'd vehemently be like, ew, no.
This has been the struggle with OM.
Do you believe in free market, the free market capitalist system?
So this is a struggle with OM. People find it very hard to box us.
Sure.
So yes, free market in the sense that you're free to market your goods. I'm not sure the person you interviewed if they mean capitalism in the form of the private ownership of the production in the country, as opposed to communism, or if they mean capitalism as in unfairly, I loosely use the word, unfairly profiteering off the needs of the people. I don't know which.
He owes me a debate. We just haven't made time. It's mostly my fault.
Yeah.
We owe each other a debate because I wanted to debate a lot of the things that he believes in. Part of it is things like willing buyer, willing seller. Why would government want to intervene if you freely are willing to take 10 Rand to work for me for a month? And in my head, I'm like, obviously not everyone has information. And so it's easy as the knowledgeable person to exploit someone because you're like, but this is fair. We agreed. And you're like, that's rubbish. There's no such thing. So those become some of the debates with free market capitalism that don't interfere. We're fine. We're okay. It's like, we don't know if you're fine.
Okay, so this is what I believe.
Yeah.
People, individuals, should be free to do what they want. Trade, whatever they want to do. Sell ice cream, whatever. But government should regulate corporations.
Okay.
Absolutely. So right now, this is the thing. Government works for the interest of business. Government needs to work for the interest of people. Keep the people free, small businesses and informal sector, empower them. Regulate corporations.
What would be the incentive for government to work for people? Because currently the incentive for business is we get to make money. We get board seats. We get funding for our parties. Why would I want to work for the people?
Well, I do believe that if you get rid of the political party system, the multi-party system, into a new system, I think it will solve some of that.
But why would government want to serve the people? So
but that's maybe
let me ask two questions at the same time. What would make the standard politician who now has to leave a party and run as an independent, what would make them want to serve the people instead of big business? And what would make big business, specifically big business, move out of the way and not interfere in that process?
I think big business will probably try fund people individually. They will.
No, they won't try to fund.
They will.
Yeah, no,
they will.
They're like, oh, we're going with independence. That's the style. Who's on there? Oh, cool.
Yes.
So
they'll have their candidates.
Yeah.
This system, I suppose, if I have to be extremely open here, the biggest flaw is the system is dependent on how awake the citizens are.
And that's the toughest thing.
That is the toughest thing. But what's the alternative? Continuing in these oppressive systems or giving people the room and the chance to grow and progress so that we can move towards a time? So right now, like I said, I believe government works in the interest of people, businesses instead of people.
Correct.
And as far as free market or whatever goes, free market for who? It should be free market for the person, the individual. Not the juristic person, as it says in legal speak.
I've been yearning to sit with the ANC, specifically ANC veterans, maybe not on platforms, in my private capacity, and look them in the eyes and actually ask them what went wrong. Because I've got a theory that a lot of these guys started off wanting to serve the people.
I agree.
Their hearts were in the right place. Their intentions were in the right place. They were willing to be tortured, jailed, maybe even die because they were like, this is something that is worth dying for.
Yes.
Something like the organic humanity movement. You're like, this is fundamental to human existence. There is nothing beyond this. And in the process of doing that, they were hurt so many times by the exact people they were trying to serve that they were like, you know what? I'll use a very crude example. The ANC government comes into power in 1994 and they try and invest in schooling, healthcare, homes for largely black people. And these black people go on to be the first to go to university, the first to become a doctor, the first to become an engineer, all these amazing things. And right after that, they feel they are too good for the ANC and they start voting for another party. And these guys are like, we don't get it. these same people we're trying to help are now going to work with other people that we think are not working in their best interests. They can go jump. We'll actually just carry on. Let's actually just make money, because we've been given these offers all the time and the people don't care. And even when you tell them, we'll give you NSFAS to go and study, all we're asking, number one, pass everything so that it turns into a grant. If not, please pay us back. And they're not paying us back. Like, don't you want to pay it forward to the next kid? If you are selfishly not going to repay your NSFAS, if you're going to bribe traffic cops, if you're not going to support local South African businesses and you'd rather support American or Chinese or European, why should I be patriotic to you? Because you're not patriotic to us. And then I think at some point they were like, you know what, let's just focus on our family and friends. But they don't need to say it. I'd like to sit with them just to ask, like, where did it go wrong? Because some of us are still idealistic and we want to know what to watch out for. And maybe we've got solutions for where you guys went wrong.
I don't know. I mean, I would imagine a sit down like that would take place when the system's changed and people can have the hindsight over time to look back and say how everything went wrong from their perspective. But I do think that, and it goes back to the decolonizing aspect of our founding, that how the political system works, how it's set up, lends itself to people acting for self-gain. So the way I see it, in the current system we have now, replacing the people is not enough. You have to change the system.
Yeah.
All the parties, except I believe maybe one or two others, are saying put different people in the current system and South Africa will get better. We're saying no, we're just going to fall for the same problems over and over again. Change the system, then put new people in, then we'll start to see progress.
Is OM willing to fight for what it believes in? And by fight, I mean literally?
No, non-violence is the way forward, if you mean literally.
So the people that currently run the systems believe very much in violence. If not them, then whoever funds and supports and endorses them. Is this something that you're just hoping that people will buy into from a spiritual level and not something that you're willing to fundamentally fight for aggressively and literally so because you're like, I believe this is the right thing?
OM is using the electoral system as a strategy to achieve its end goal. I will fight for my freedom.
Yeah.
And I believe that people who would naturally align themselves with the OM message would probably do the same. Fight for their freedom, whatever that looks like.
Okay. Why the political system? This is my number one criticism of what you're doing. And it's the number one thing that saddens me about this journey that you're on.
Okay.
I do believe the system is very broken, very corrupt, somewhat evil. And by registering a political party and throwing your hat in the ring and trying to garner votes and the like, I think already you're stepping into the mud with the pigs. And before you see it, you got to be like, no, we're doing the right thing. And it's like, but you're covered in mud and you're busy punching the pigs and they stamping on you. And why not become a civil organization? It becomes so much easier for anyone with political affiliation or otherwise to be like, I'm happy to donate $100, $500, $1,000 every month. I'd like you guys to challenge for constitutional reform, for political reform. But why get in there? Because now you're making me choose between whoever I was going to vote for and you. You're telling me that if I support you, the other people that I like, for whatever reason, my family, they gave them jobs, these are relatives, they're going to almost cease to exist. And I don't like that. But I like what you stand for. And I want us to carry on with this system, but I want to support you. But you're almost forcing me to choose between you and this. And I'm too deeply entrenched in this. Or do you guys have a secondary arm where it's like, you don't have to vote for us, but you can donate, you can help us push for constitutional reform and.
No, so this is something I wrestled with from the beginning. Be a civic organization or be a political party.
Yeah.
I think it's a question I still wrestle with in my mind.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that not voting still empowers those in power.
Correct.
And because of that, because people don't have that alternative. So we're saying you shouldn't be making votes based on immediate self-gratification because a family member got a job or whatever. That's the wrong reason. You'll never be able to prosper in life if the government keeps helping all the time. So the system we're adamant that the system has to change, and we don't see it changing. This is exactly you mentioned Dr. Michael Louis. He went the more conventional route in terms of going through the legal system to so he lobbied for the changes, went through the legal system, and he left the changes in the hands of ravenous wolves, Parliament, to then change the legislation. And they changed the legislation. Do you know that political parties were not even initially mentioned with the first issue? But now that they had the legislation open in front of them, they're like, why don't we put some more barriers in place for political parties too? And political parties before this year did not need the signature requirement. That's new. So that's the problem. Legislatures are going to legislate. The elections are going to continue. Government's still going to govern. We can't escape that. So this is also why I'm so passionate about getting more people out to vote. We had 18 million people not voting in 2019, and then we had 17 million people that were voting. So we had more people not voting. I feel like that's a crisis. So what happens is that Parliament's there. The 400 seats are not going anywhere. Someone is going to occupy those seats. And the people are not voting because they're not seeing any options. They're not seeing any options because they don't like the system. So if everyone went to go and vote, those 18 million that didn't vote, and if they voted strategically, so I have two schools of thought. Ohm aside, put Ohm to the side for a moment. Either vote for a brand new party of some kind, or vote for, so look at the 14 parties in Parliament, vote for the bottom 5. One of the bottom 5 that most resonate with you. Because now instead of the top 3 parties occupying 90% of those 400 seats, now you'll have maybe 20 parties, each of them occupying a more even distribution of seats.
That would be your suggestion to...
In the system. In the system as
putting Ohm aside, we've got 14 political parties. I think parties like Al Jama'ah, I think COPE has a seat or 2, the Good Party of Patricia de Lille and a couple of others at the bottom. Rather vote for them to take away, to redistribute.
It's not even about policy anymore. It's about just having a more even distribution. Isn't it crazy that the top 3 parties occupy 90% of the seats? I think that's crazy. I don't think that's truly democratic.
I've been wanting to spoil my ballot. I spoiled my... What did I do? So at the last local elections, 2021, I was very frustrated. I voted, I think it was Action SA, for local municipality. And then I think it was Action. I stand to be corrected. And then I spoiled for ward council, etc. I wanted to spoil, from then to now, I wanted to spoil my votes for the national. And I realized spoiling my vote does nothing.
Does nothing.
I wish if all of us, or if a lot of us spoiled our ballots, the IEC government would be forced to be like, we have to look at these 5 million. Therefore, these seats will be empty, as an example. Or we need to find out what's going on, whatever the case may be. And even the one thing is nothing happened to spoiled votes. And number 2, we don't even have a quorum. So we don't need to meet 50% of registered to say, okay, if it's not 50%, it's an invalid, whatever the number is. So I realized that was a problem. So then it became best of the worst, whatever the case may be. Would you promote, as an example, that people that don't know who to vote for, people that would like to spoil their ballots, please vote for Ohm?
100%.
Because we are anti-establishment. We are I don't believe in this thing. So vote for us, because if we get in there, we'll be like, we're here because there are people that actually think this is a farce.
We'll take it further, not just the people that would typically spoil their ballots, but people who wouldn't typically go vote. We are asking to please vote for Ohm, because at least you'll be voting for system change. We're anti the current system. One of our members coined the phrase, if you hate politics, vote Ohm.
Sure. And you believe that?
Yes, because we're all about, again, at the end of the day, freedom. We want to dismantle control, whether it's via government or corporation. We want to get rid of that control. We don't want humans to be controlled. And once that is achieved, society will progress. And I do believe on a more like broader level, human purpose type of level,
Sure.
that our time here on Earth is supposed to be for progressing forward. You know, if you look at the past 100 years, and if we haven't like developed new things, new technology, if we haven't found more unity amongst ourselves, then we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So we need to look at it from a human progress perspective. It's very important to us. So there are 260,000 people that spoiled their ballots in 2019. They would have been the sixth largest party in Parliament. Crazy. Not too far behind the EFF.
I've got 2 more questions before we shut it down.
Okay.
The first one is about voting style. The second one is about one of the things that I want to champion for moving forward.
Okay.
You guys have an alternative view on how we should be voting, which is one of the
Yes.
things that also fascinated me about you. So currently it's very binary. It's either this guy or that guy, and it's done. It's like, yeah, but I like 3 parties. Like, we don't care that you like 3 parties.
Pick one.
You must only pick one, which
Yes.
automatically means you hate the others. You're like, you guys have a different
We
approach.
do. And what you said there is so indicative of the mentality that exists in the citizens' understanding of democracy. For people, a lot of people, democracy is about one party winning over another. That is not democracy.
Yeah.
And we also see democracy more as an ideal to strive towards more than a system. So you create a system that incorporates democratic ideals. And the other thing is that when it comes to voting especially, it's not win or lose, it's representation.
Yeah.
So you have to, this is the mentality that prevails amongst members of parliament, that we're the winners, so our laws are going to be passed. You're the loser, so we're not even going to consider you. But we actually have to be very somber and take the responsibility seriously as members of parliament and see that, okay, all of us in parliament are representing a portion of the population. And whether it's 1% or 50% or 70%, it's equal in worth and value. We're not a majority rule. It should be a representative democracy where as many voices are heard as possible.
Sure.
And so with the new ballot, so what we're proposing, and everyone can go look at in our manifesto, we give an example. It's called the alternative vote system. And what happens that instead of voting for your favorite party or candidate in whatever system, you vote for as many as you want to. You actually rate them, you score them. So say you like Lauren Evanthea Bernardo. I'm your favorite, so I would be number 1.
Yeah.
And Pen, you're the second favorite, so you'd be number 2.
Sure.
And then you rate them accordingly. So if there's 10 people on the ballot, you can rate them all, or you can only rate the 3 that you like, 1, 2, and 3, or all of them. It's up to you. What happens when you use this system is that as you're tallying the votes, you'll see that the weakest contenders on the broad spectrum of voters will fall out of the running immediately. And naturally, what will come to the fore are some of the top contenders, and eventually the one will win their seat. And the other thing we want to do at a presidential level that ties in with the same principle is that the second and third runners up in the presidential campaign become the president's advisors.
That's dope. Well, it should be tricky, but it's dope. Sorry, Khumutsu, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say.
No.
Okay.
Stretching.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure I'm not missing anything. The idea of digital voting, especially with technology like blockchain, because we still now take a pen and we put a cross, bit backwards, bit old school, whereas we have the technology, facial recognition, fingerprint, voice. You can still be physically present if someone wants to be like, I also audited, she was there. But what are your thoughts on that?
It makes me nervous.
Okay.
And it's something I'd have to learn a lot more about. But I do feel like if anything's existing in the digital world, it can be manipulated. Results can be manipulated.
The current manual has to be captured digitally as well before they count it.
It is captured, but the manual is still there. The manual is, we go draw on a piece of paper, can't be mistaken.
And you trust that more?
I do. I've been part of the counting process. I've been a party agent many, many times. And I do trust the process. And again, and whether it's in this democracy that we have now or in a future democracy, the effectiveness of any democracy is dependent on how active the people are. So
Sure.
even in the current counting system, the election system, each party can have 2 agents on the day that will observe proceedings, and each party can have 2 people that observe the counting. And then private organizations can also apply to the IEC to have observers. So the more people that observe, the more transparent the system. But granted, we have over 20,000 voting stations across the country. So you need a lot of volunteers.
A lot of human capital.
One party needs like a lot of people, 100,000
Is it times
people.
4?
No.
Or times 2?
2, times 2.
So it's 40,000 people. If you wanted to have representation, 2 people at
Minimum.
Yeah,
Minimum.
no, that's
you want to do
crazy.
shifts because no one's going to be there for
Oh boy.
all those hours. Because the counting process takes hours. The actual voting day is like 12 hours, if not more. So you need more. You actually should times it by 4. So people can do it in shifts. But ultimately, the process is transparent. Likely because, for instance, say because it's national elections now, say there's like 30 people on the ballot, 30 different parties, sorry, not people, we're not in the new system yet. There's obviously going to be a lot of observers. And because of that, people are going to hold each other accountable. So you actually, the IEC officials are around a big table that's bigger than this, and they open the ballot and they put it down, and they open the next ballot and put it down, and they'll put it in different piles for different parties. So you're watching the process, and at any time, as an observer, you can put your hand up and say, but there's a discrepancy. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that. And even with the spoiled ballots, they'll open it up. This is a spoiled ballot. Then they'll show you the criteria for what a spoiled ballot is. And then everyone has to come to a consensus. Yes, we agree. All of us, the EFF party agents, the DA party agents, the ANC party agents, us, all the small parties, we all have to agree, yes, this is a spoiled ballot. So I think the system is pretty foolproof. So before SABC or whoever even announces the results, if the parties have all their people sending the results to them from all over the country, everyone should have pretty much a good idea way before it's even told to the public.
It's crazy.
So the system, I actually love the current.
The manual. I hope we can
the blueprint.
maybe do both for now. I like technology, and I think maybe not for national elections per se, but specifically for like pieces of legislation where you want people to comment and it would be nice if after everyone votes, they also are encouraged to go and do something digital, and then you do just to check. You don't have to say, since this works, scrap this, just to see over time, and maybe to also just conscientize people on there are digital platforms for other things when they get home. CODESA 2.0. Before I speak about CODESA, I need to give a shout out. Oh boy, I forgot last time we said here. Untate Kibine Sizwe, this is for you, boy. Debza's dad came here to complain that Sizwe are always destroying. Nabo Homos are destroying the set. Sizwe, you guys are destroying the set?
No.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Oh, but anyways, he came here and he was like, every time you speak here, you're like, hey, shout out to the crew. And it's like, hey, things are falling apart, Baba, and I've been fixing. Anyways, Tuntate Kibine, I just want to say thank you for all the work you do in maintaining some of the parts that the guys are destroying. This is for you. CODESA 2.0 is something that I'd like to push. We're 30 years in, and I'm hoping 30 years later, if not maybe earlier, you spoke about future generations. There needs to come a point where it's like, oh, my mom did this, my dad did this. Oh, they old now. I'm here now. People aged 16 to 40, that bracket could always, could allow for outliers, or we could negotiate. I would like to have a CODESA 2.0 sit down, looking at parts of our past, trying to imagine what was discussed and agreed upon at the first CODESA, and then to say we want a new way and we'd like to champion it. It could be how we vote, how the legal system, healthcare system, education, etc. And then we table for ourselves into the future, and we tell the old people, we appreciate everything you did for us, but this is our time now. You guys had your chance. We've seen it, and we're trying to improve upon it. Our kids are also going to criticize us. We'll sit there, try and influence them. They'll tell us, nope, this is our thing moving forward. And I don't know how you'd feel about something like that.
I love that. You should go for it. You should absolutely go for that. And I also think that, obviously, with the transition into 1994 and the new government, there was centuries, decades of struggle and torture and death and sacrifice. And because of that, people hold on to sentiment.
Yeah.
So the way everything is set up now, they feel like they need to uphold that for everything they suffered, not recognizing the importance of moving forward, because I believe that our democracy, whatever shape and form it has been up till now, has matured to the point where we have to change things.
Yeah.
We have to, so that society can improve. And we have in Parliament a very old average age of 65. They are looking at their retirement. Their children have grown already. Their children have children. Maybe even some of their children's children have children.
Oh, that's correct. If I'm 70, 50,
definitely.
30, geez.
Definitely. So we definitely need fresh ideas and fresh minds. And I would love, the non-political side of my brain would love as many people as possible to take these ideas you have, like of CODESA 2.0, and run with it. It can only benefit our democracy. To get this discussion of changing our system, improving our system, into mainstream discourse is of utmost importance.
Yeah.
It needs to become normal. Like we talk about rugby or whatever, we need to talk about system change. It's the most important thing. We will not move forward as a country. We will always be stuck in the past. People will always be in poverty if we don't move forward and look towards newer ideas.
Any closing remarks?
I don't know.
So I'm going to give you a chance to campaign there for people to vote for OHM. But before you do that, do you have any other closing remarks or anything you'd like to get off your chest?
You know, as I said at the beginning of this interview, my thought process was religion, like the government, should be abolished. And then my life changed completely when I had children. And I understand and sympathize with everyone that feels like they don't want to go out and vote. And I also understand and sympathize with people that feel like the solution is not found in the political system. But how has not participating benefited anybody? It hasn't. Who's more powerful than you right now? How powerful are you as a human being? You're not. Government has control over you. Government is taking your tax. Government is taking the VAT. Government is passing laws that are going to affect us in ways we can't imagine. It's happening over and over again, especially as the international community puts pressure on our government to implement specific laws and development of the nation in terms of smart cities. We haven't even touched urbanization, which is quite a passion of mine. But people have power over you right now. And if you have a problem with that, then you should absolutely vote.
Yeah. Thank you. That camera there.
Hi,
South Africans. How are you doing? Let's dismantle everything. Sorry, this is your chance to campaign to anyone that you'd like to on why they should vote for the Organic Humanity Movement.
Voting for the Organic Humanity Movement gives you an opportunity to vote against the current systems that are, in my opinion, wreaking havoc on this nation. And our vision ultimately is to turn South Africa into a strong, sovereign nation that allows us to be leaders in the world, leaders of democracy, leaders of industry, leaders of science and technology. We have the brains in the country to do so. We have the workforce in the country to do so. We have the people, we have the space, we have everything we need. We have the minerals. Other countries have become superpowers off of our wealth, our resources. It's time to turn that around. It's time to wake up to our own power as a nation and a citizenry. And that's why we would like you to consider voting for OHM. It's just the first step to the ultimate liberation of the country, but it's an important step. And the faster we can dismantle these oppressive systems that govern our society, the faster we can end mass suffering and move forward into a whole new era for our children to grow up into.
Lauren Evanthia Bernardo of the Organic Humanity Movement, thank you so much for joining us on the Penuel Show.
Thank you so much.
Really, really inspired by the ideologies and the vision that you have. And I hope in some or other way we can try and push in whatever form for some of the ideals to actually come into play. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And this has been great fun. And I'm glad that you're exploring, talking about politics more. And I hope it wasn't too boring.
Thank you.